Welcome to the How Women Inspire podcast. Today is a really special day, and you're going to get to hear from such an unbelievably creative innovator who is really driving change, Coco Sellman. She is a passionate advocate for the power of business as a force for good when visionary women are at the forefront. She's been an entrepreneur for 25 years and launched 5 companies and mentored over 500 startups. She is the founder and CEO of A Force for Good. Coco empowers purpose-driven women founders to achieve remarkable growth and success, obviously using her extraordinary background. Her latest venture, Allume Home Care, achieved 8-figure revenues and 7-figure profits in just 4 years, culminating in a successful exit in 2024. Congratulations. Very exciting. She's a venture investor and an advisor, and she's gearing up to release her upcoming book, which I cannot wait to read, A Force for Good, which will serve as a roadmap for women looking to lead high-impact, high-growth companies. Coco is an active member of our national board at How Women Lead. She's a vibrant part of our network, and she's a very good friend. I am so excited that you're here today.
I'm so excited too. I just love listening to your show. I listen to it every week. It's wonderful.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Well, then, we always start with, I ask you to bring a song that is your theme song or something that really sort of gets you up when you need it.
There is a song. It's called For Her by the Chicks. And it came out like 2 or 3 years ago. And it was sort of a Ruth Bader Ginsburg tribute song. And if you haven't listened to it, you have to, and you'll be addicted to it overnight. You will have to listen to it over and over again. Have you heard it? You know it?
I do. Absolutely. Yeah, no question about it. All right. You just sold an extraordinary exit, right? Can you talk about that? How was that as a woman leading that company, and what was your experience like? I mean, it's not your first rodeo, but it was a big exit.
It was such an incredible journey, Julie. This was the company that I longed to in my bones. It was the baby I wanted to birth from the beginning. And it was, a healthcare company. It was purpose-led. We had meticulous data and financials, and I had a great team, and we grew really fast. And we had a very clear market. We were going after a very specific market, these kids who were coming out of the hospital with profound medical needs. And we really were able to take off very quickly. I loved every minute. It was so gosh darn hard.
Yeah.
I mean, painfully hard and expensive. Our run rate was the costs were just really, really hard. And so we grew really quick, but we were just barely profitable when that pandemic hit. And it was just like, oh my goodness, how are we going to survive? And it was challenging. I brought in 2 investors, and we were able to sort of figure it out. And I quickly was able to see I need a new growth strategy. This growing one patient, one nurse at a time is not going to work. And that's why we decided to do a merger and then on to an exit. It's like it was in fits and starts. It was sort of like again and again, I had these moments that it appeared that it was overnight success, but it never felt that way. Right? Like,
it looks like it was easy, honey.
Oh, it was painful. It was so hard. And I loved every single moment of it. I never felt so alive and so on purpose and enriched and like I was making a difference. A merger is hard. Right? A merger is hard, and getting to know other owners and having our own ideas about how we do things it was a very grown-up exercise.
Yeah.
I will always see it as a rite of passage. And in some ways, I feel like I always believe that life is happening for you, not to you. And like, it was profitably, the merger was very successful. If that's all I cared about, I would just be saying it was just great. But it was hard because we didn't all do things the same way.
Yeah.
And we didn't.
The brutal thing about selling your company or merging in is it almost always loses that really yummy special sauce that was the reason why you started. Can I just take a breath though? You just said words about how alive and full of purpose you are. And so many people in our community are in a pivot or considering, could I start something? And so to me, I feel like you just spoke to me like that's what I'm living. It is so hard. Dragging and building an organization through this pandemic and everything else has been just excruciating at times. Like, how are you going to pay payroll kind of thing? But on the other
Totally.
hand, never before felt so alive. And I think as women in adolescence and in our age group, it is just so important to think the balancing of both. And so many people are in work environments that suck their soul. Your
Mhm,
soul is
mhm.
full, but you got a lot of bruises. It took so much courage. What did you learn about yourself, Coco, in that process?
Well, I mean, I really learned over and over and over and over again that you can just take it right in the face and get right back up again, right? You
Sounds
can just,
brutal.
you can. I mean, you just
Man.
like, and the other thing, Julie, I'll just own this. I really, one of my mantras over the last few years, and it started in the pandemic, and I actually write about this in my book, is this question of what is my highest and best use?
Yes.
And how can I serve the mission, the purpose, the company, the greatest good that I can with this day, this moment, this year? And I learned that I can be very unselfish. I learned that I can set my ego aside and do the right thing, even when others don't understand it and might have opinions that are negative
Yep.
about me.
Yep.
But because I am doing the right thing and I am being a good partner or whatever it is, I mean, I losing a bunch of my people because we had a different way of doing things. And there was a moment, Julie, where I knew I could fight for them to all stay, but I also knew that the organization was never going to be right for them.
Yeah.
And I knew at some point we were going to need synergies. So
That's so
there were
hard.
these like really hard moments of just having to do the right thing for the most people.
Oh my God. So you lived in integrity, you lived in purpose. Like to me, that is the definition of a life well lived. Like it sounds to me like you did everything the way you were supposed to do it, even though it was really, really hard.
Yeah.
And
And I would do it again.
congratulations. That's
Yeah.
what a lesson and so important for everyone to really consider deeply. And thank you for being authentic and talking about how challenging it was. Do you think there was anything about you as a female founder that was talk about your experience as a female founder? Did it change things?
I think that we are particularly well suited to lead in times where there's multiple stakeholders and multiple needs. I think we're particularly good at that. I remember going to a private equity dinner, right? I was meeting and they're looking for acquisitions and we were one of the companies they were looking to acquire. And I was standing there with two other founders who were both men. And I was like the only woman in the room, of
Right.
course. And I was standing there with two men, and we're talking about the same kind of business. We're in the same kind of healthcare services business. We employ mostly women nurses, and they're talking about why they can't get their nurses to go out and do more visits and make more money. And I said, "Well, are you talking to them about revenue?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "What else?" I was like, "Well, that's about the most unemotionally intelligent thing I've ever heard."
Because
Right? Like
nurses don't become nurses for that purpose.
they don't care. They
Yeah.
don't care, right? And as a matter of fact, it makes them angry and it makes them not want to work hard. So I think women have, and I found for myself, my emotional intelligence, my ability to get things done, my ability to understand who needs what in order to do the next thing, right? And like we talk about impact, we talk about taking kids home from the hospital, we talk about helping moms that are needing their help with their kid with a trach and event. We don't talk about how many hours did you work last week,
Yeah.
right? We don't talk that way because it doesn't fulfill me as a founder and it doesn't make me want to keep going up the hill and it certainly doesn't inspire the team to do that either.
Yeah. I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm not asking for a seat at the table. My friends, this is the first generation of us. We have a huge opportunity. We have power and influence and wealth. And we can start building the tables where we get the prime seats. Today, we want to invite you to join us as investors in venture. I know no one's asked you to do it before. It might be something that seems scary or foreign, but I promise you it's not that different than investing in a mutual fund where your retirement funds are. I want you to lean in and just learn a little bit more. How about making a commitment that in the next 12 months, you can give yourself 12 months to figure it out and to take a step. I want to invite you to be part of the new table of power and influence and wealth. You're invited. I want to sit at the table with you because we're going to make big change. We're going to make the world we've been dreaming of. You know, you and I are both investors in companies founded by women. We're doing it together. And why do you think that's so important right now? Like, where do you see the demand and need for that in the world?
Business right now, the construct that still exists was formulated back in the time when assets were of value, not people.
Yeah.
Right. So the Carnegies and Rockefellers were dealing with trains and oil and steel. And that was what property, that was what was of value. What's of value today is people. And by the way, it was a time period when there was like one job and this was the job and you had to go work in a coal mine, right? And this was your only opportunity to get work. And so if the conditions weren't great, then too bad, you didn't work.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas today it's the other side where there's so many, the human capital, intellectual capital is what's important. And people have a choice where they can work. And customers have a choice on what they buy. And we're a consumer driven market. Now we have social media. If you do anything that's out of line, you're going to get called out on it. So
interesting, Coco. So I was reading a Spencer Stuart report that was talking about they interviewed all these CEOs, and basically what's coming out is not only are employees, we're seeing a big wave right now of employees not feeling invested in the outcomes of the companies, but that the CEOs themselves are feeling lack of purpose, lack of sense of like, I want to put in the extra. No, even the CEO is getting paid huge amounts of money. And I think you just hit on something so important. We are right now in a fragile, important moment in the world. Maybe this is the biggest opportunity we've ever had, where we have got to start looking at, why are we working? What is the purpose? Am I extracting everything from the earth and from the humans around me, or am I actually contributing? So what do you see as the future of where we're going, and you've named some skills that I would say are the, critical new skills for people, but you're coaching women business owners all the time. Like, what are you saying?
Well, I absolutely think you have to have that emotional intelligence, but you also have to have one other piece of advice I always give whenever I talk to a founder is like, we talk, and oftentimes, do you have somebody on your team who is data driven? Are you a data file? Or is someone else on your team? It's okay if you're not, but that might be your first hire, is someone who is just going to be responsible for collecting information about what's happening in your business. Because if you're not data driven and like, me, like we went to Cuba together, you asked everybody what their superpower is. My superpower is my inner wisdom. That's for sure. But my analytics is like, once I know what the problem is, then I can apply my wisdom.
Right.
But if you don't know what the problem is and you don't have data to show you,
I love that.
Especially in marketing and all this world of AI, you've got to know ins and outs, and your margins are always thin. I don't care what kind of business you're in. You always have to be watching that last penny. Yeah. And how do you turn that next, percentage point so that you can get juice just a little bit more out of whatever you can so that you can grow. And so you can hire that next person that you want to hire, or you want to make an improvement, or you want to give everybody a raise, right? You have to do that through really careful minding of all your numbers.
I love that you just said that. As you know, you and I are so aligned as data geeks that combine with heart, right? It's a combo. So for everybody listening, like, those are really critical skills and focus areas to hone running a company, because that inspires confidence. So you want to inspire confidence, and you want to inspire action, innovate, like people to give the extra mile, right? And to
100%. Yeah, and I think it's so much of it's too, like, you can't, especially when you're a startup and you're growing, you can't do everything all at one time.
Right.
There's a lot of things that in your company at any given time aren't perfect.
Right.
If 1 to 5, there's usually tons of threes. And you know what? That's okay. The brilliant leaders know what's okay to leave it as a level 3 and what is not okay and needs, if it were to be a 4 or 5, would change everything where you need those breakthroughs. And so it's being able to see clearly where you can make change, and then, don't try to change everything. Really change that one thing that really needs it, that
Most
breakthrough.
powerful, and that'll be most
Yeah.
powerful. So you help women entrepreneurs with their big time growth strategies and to reach unicorn status even. What does that generally look like for you? And are there ahas about who makes the best entrepreneur?
Well, I would say that growth is a puzzle you can solve, right? And it's like I said, is you start out with like having a little data and having some clarity about it. And as you start to grow, the company will evolve and your role has to evolve. Right. So in the beginning, you're scrubbing the toilets and, answering all the emails. And if you're still, I always like to say, if you're doing what you did last year, if your day to day is the same as last year, chances are your company is not growing,
Right.
because you, as the founder, in order to really elevate the company, it has to be your own internal transitions and transformations and growth that spur the company. Can only grow as far as the founder is willing to grow. So people who are self-aware and people who are willing to change thoughtfully, strategically, receive guidance, have mentors, go out into the world, have a board, even if you don't have any investors, right? One of the gifts of Illume was that you were required to have 2 boards as a part of your regulatory
Oh,
process. And,
yeah.
and I just saw it as a gift.
I feel like this was just what a masterclass. Everything that you just said, like people rewind it and re-listen and re-listen and re-listen. That was brilliant. And I feel like for myself, I'm going to check myself and be like, am I doing something different than I did a year ago? That is absolutely essential
And I
information.
know you are, by the
Yes,
way.
but it's really good to step back and think, right? Like, what is it that is going to be the highest value? And I love the example of the rating what's the priority on 1 to 5 and which one has to be a 5 in order for me to win. I love that. Thank you for that. All right. We all can buy your book for A Force for Good. Can you give us the insights of what is the highlights that we need to know?
The framework behind it is, it's like intended to be the first of many.
Okay.
And it's sort of like, I studied biochemistry. So I think of it, and then hopefully this doesn't make it sound boring, but I think of it as the foundation, right? So you need to know the periodic table before you can do elegant
Yeah.
chemistry,
Yeah.
right? And so it really is the building blocks, and it's all the pieces and parts. And so it has all the pieces of it. It's a 4-page plan with know your vision, know your purpose, know your customer. And then you're able, with all these different elements, to dive in deep. And in 4 pages, you have everything to focus on that will
Yeah.
help you grow. So it's simple, and yet it has a lot of detail in helping you map up all these pieces. It is a roadmap for growing a high impact, high growth company. And the idea is to implement it, double your revenue in the first year, and learn how to then do it again and again for exponential growth. And profit is how what you need to squeeze out at the end. And that's also strategic, as you know,
Right.
like how profitable versus how much do you reinvest. So
Excellent. Oh my God, this is fantastic. Coco, I cannot thank you enough for coming and talking with us today. This is just gold. If you have one last thing you would like to share with people, like the everybody must remember from your own experience, what would that be?
I would just say that if you wake up in the morning and you can't not be a founder, then you must.
There we
Like,
go.
like if this is what you're born to do, then please reach out to networks like How Women Lead and come and learn about the Force for Good system. I have tons of stuff that's free, that's available for anybody at any rate. And so it's get support, and you can do it. Growth is a puzzle you can solve,
Yeah.
right? It really is.
I love that. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. If you're not an entrepreneur yet, I hope you are walking away feeling like I could actually make this happen. I've got a roadmap. And if you are an entrepreneur, I hope you don't feel so. I feel that now you feel like there's somebody else sees you and there's recognition.
Yeah.
Coco, how can people find you and find your book?
Yes. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Coco Sellman, and I'm sure you'll put it in the note. You can find also, I have a website, of forceforgood.biz, and on the website you will find the book, a forceforgood.biz/book. And you can pre-order it. When you do, right away you'll get access to the toolkit, which is the full recipe for over 80 tools of the Force for Good system.
Excellent. What a gift to spend time with you today. You are brilliant. And to find such a values-based, hardworking, courageous, generous leader is really extraordinary gift for all of us. Thank you so much, Coco. I am so honored to call you a friend.
Likewise, Julie. Very, very blessed to be here and to be with your community.